and welcome to our Featured States for Nurses series. We are excited to be featuring North Carolina today, and we are so glad that you've joined us. My name is Ashley Wheatley, and I am the Director of Relocation here at Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions. I'm really excited to be able to present with my colleague here today in North Carolina. I was born and raised in North Carolina, so it's very close to my heart. I'm very excited to be able to introduce Molly Linehan, our Senior Relocation Coordinator. She has recently helped locate over 400 families to the United States. And so we're so excited to have her join me today.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I'm excited to be here with everyone talking about North Carolina. I actually just moved here about 2 years ago myself. So I've kind of gone through the phases of what it's like to move here and what it's like to acclimate here. And I'm excited to talk about it with everybody. We have some great content, some great resources for all of you. And I'm excited to get started.
Me too. Thanks, Molly. Yeah, we are so excited today. We got some good stuff for you. We're hoping that this webinar can be extremely interactive. We're going to be sharing with you some tools and resources so you can find the best location for you and your family with this upcoming relocation. One of the things that we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about utilities and budgeting. We're also going to be bringing up transportation, as well as finding the best schools in North Carolina. And we're even going to go into the licensure. But how we're going to start is we're going to begin by giving you some basic geography and tips about the culture so you can get a little taste of what North Carolina is. But before we jump into that, we'd love to know where you guys are coming from. So please jump into the chat. Tell us where you're coming from. And also, let us know where you are in the immigration process. Let us know if you're just looking. Let us know if North Carolina is already your state and you're wanting to know more. That'll help us guide this interactive presentation today so we can help you the best way possible. So go ahead, jump on, and please note the links that are up above in the chat. If you are looking and ready to come join our worldwide team, go ahead and get in touch with the recruiter. That link is up at the top for you. So we're going to go ahead and jump in today and talk a little bit about the geography of North Carolina, where it is, how you find it, what it's close to. So to do that, I'm actually going to take us over to Google Maps, which I have found is extremely helpful to be able to know the distance of things in the United States. One thing that's really important to note when looking at anything in the United States is on a map, it may look really close, but the United States is huge, and to Americans, distance could be a couple hours, could be really short. So just remember that as we're talking and chatting today. So thanks for jumping in the chat. Continue to tell us where you're at. I'm going to bring us over to Google Maps and just give you a basic overview. So right here, this is a map of the United States in its entirety. And if you look over here in the southeastern corner, that is where you'll find North Carolina. It's centered in the south, and it's right along the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and we can see that North Carolina is a really long state, and it is centered primarily in between Atlanta, Georgia, and Washington, D.C. And if I zoom in a little bit more here, you can see some of the major cities that we have in North Carolina. We have Charlotte, we have Raleigh, we have up here, if I zoom in a little bit more, it'll bring up Winston-Salem, which is a big city. It's near Greensboro. Out here in the mountains, we have Asheville. And over here by the coast, we have Fayetteville and Wilmington. So these are just some of the big cities. Go ahead into the chat and tell us some of the big cities that you're interested in learning about. Um, that kind of comes to a good point for me. Molly, when you think about the geography of North Carolina, just having moved here, what's something that stands out to you?
The biggest thing that I just love about North Carolina is that you get a lot of the best of both worlds here. You get the rolling hills, you get the beautiful mountains if you're looking to make a trip out to the mountains. You also have access to the beach, which is one of my favorite things. I'm from Florida myself, so used to the beaches, and I love being able to go down to the coast and spend some time over there. But then you also get these amazing cities with all these fun activities to do and great opportunities and people to meet. So I love that you kind of get a big range of geography and a big range of different activities you can do within North Carolina. Whereas a lot of states, they may not have access to the beach or they may not have these beautiful mountains. So that's probably one of my favorite things about North Carolina.
I love that. Thank you so much. And we just started a video to show you all some of our beautiful scenery that we have in North Carolina. One of the things that I personally really love about North Carolina is that it has 4 distinctive seasons, but nothing in the extreme. So, summer is hot, but it's not blazing. The winter is cold, but it's not tundra cold. So that for me, you also get the beautiful leaves in the fall and the flowers in the spring. So it's always kind of a moderate. You can see right here in the video, you got the beautiful leaves changing in the fall. And so those are some things that really, stick out to me when talking about the location, kind of some logistical points within North Carolina. With that being said, knowing where it is, knowing some facts, what does it feel like? I guess that's the next big question that we want to kind of touch on.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of great, puts into our discussion of just the culture of North Carolina. And I think one of the big things that you hear here in the States about a Southern state is Southern hospitality, Southern charm. People tend to be very polite, using good manners. I'm excited to meet and speak with you. If you have a question and you're out in public, if you ask someone on the streets, they're going to be happy to help you out, which I think is, I think when we think about the United States as a whole, it's easy to put a culture to the whole United States, but all of these states and all of these locations all have their own unique culture. And being in the South, you definitely get the Southern charm. You get things like the amazing Southern barbecue, and like a very great demographic of people. As I had mentioned earlier, I actually moved here from Florida. And in Florida, there's a lot of an older age demographic. Whereas when I moved here to North Carolina, you see a large demographic of a lot of people. You have these people who are coming in and starting families, and their kids are in these great schools, and their spouses are getting, these great job opportunities because they have so many here in North Carolina. But you also have, this young demographic of people who are getting out of college and they're just starting their lives and trying to make it work. And then you also have this older demographic of people who are here retired, enjoying the beautiful weather, enjoying the beautiful scenery, which is just one of my favorite parts, coming from a state where the demographic's mostly older. It's nice to kind of have a great range of ages here and people to interact with.
I absolutely love that. When I think of the culture, I always go back to just growing up. You walk down the street and everybody will wave to you. Everybody will say good morning. It's very community focused. There's lots of things to do in the community. There's a lot of people to interact with, and that's always meant a lot to me. Just even coming from that, and that is a very distinctive culture to the South. And North Carolina may be centered a little bit north of the South, but it still falls into that category, especially with its culture.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. And I think some cool things just to point out about North Carolina is, we're We're known for having over 300 waterfalls, which is my favorite part about North Carolina. We're actually the furniture capital of the United States in North Carolina, which I think is just fantastic. You'll see all these warehouses around the street as you're going through, which I think is so cool. I've actually seen some be turned into these super fun activities or really cool food halls. So I think it's nice that they can make use of some of the old charms that we used to have as well.
I love that. It's great that you mentioned that because North Carolina just is so vast in its differences. I mean, like you said earlier, we have the mountains where you can explore, like the Biltmore House, which is here in this picture. The Biltmore House is the largest mansion in the United States. It's a castle, and it is so cool to go see, and it's got beautiful vineyards. You've got fun zoos for your family to go to. And then you've got the cities that have the indoor putt-putt places. And there's just so many things. You have everything from the rural farm community that you can go and get pumpkins in the fall to, the really fun VR stations that you have in the city. And so that's the nice thing for me about North Carolina is just you're close to a lot of things. If you want to go take a hike or if you want to go watch a movie, it's not far away, which can be far away depending on where you are in the US. So it's a great thing.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, kind of pull into next, turn the time to Molly a little bit to talk about some of the clients that we have here in North Carolina.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure everyone in the chat right now is just wondering about all the amazing clients that we are hiring for and have hired for in in North Carolina. Some of these that you'll see are located across North Carolina, so they have multiple locations all around. One of those, just right here off of our list, is Atrium Health. They have multiple locations throughout North Carolina, which I find very fascinating. We have Cape Fear Valley Health. They are located in Fayetteville. I saw in our chat earlier, we had someone interested in learning more about Fayetteville. We have some great content coming up for that. And then we have Iredale. They are in Statesville, North Carolina, which is just a little bit north of Charlotte. Almost the perfect location from Charlotte, because then you can stay out of the city, beat all that traffic, but being able to enjoy the city perks and going into the city when you want a fun night out. So I highly recommend, again, if you're interested and you haven't joined the worldwide team yet, please go talk with one of our live recruiters. They'll be happy to talk about opportunities here in North Carolina and what we have going on right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Molly. And again, those links are up at the top of the chat. As you see, I just put into the chat, what are some cities you would like to know about? Is there a particular client that you'd like to know about that we can pull a city up for them? Because we are going to now share with you guys some fun tools and websites that you can use to keep up to date. As we know, prices, cost of living, things like that change a little bit over the years, and they vary. But so we want to be able to give you the tools that you can use to be able to keep up to date with what the cost of living is, how to be able to budget for your family with your salaries and all those things. So go ahead and put it in the chat, and we're going to look up a few of those on an incredible tool that we have, which is called the EPI calculator. And we'll throw that calculator into the chat as well. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. This is our EPI calculator, is the Economic Policy Institute calculator, and it is on their website. What this website does is we can go over here and we type in a city. I'm going to go ahead and type in Fayetteville. Oh, if my if my keyboard will work with me today. Fayetteville, North Carolina. So I'm going to scroll down to North Carolina and click on the Fayetteville tab. And this is going to bring up the monthly cost on average for people who are living in that area. So you can see on average, they tend to spend 726 on housing, and about 255 on food. I'll talk about these a little bit more. But the main thing when looking at this calculator that I'd like people to know is that it's not always, this isn't necessarily going to be your cost, right? You can budget for food a little bit cheaper. You may have a different alternative for transportation. Maybe your healthcare is a little cheaper, but this is just the average. And this is a good budgeting tool to kind of say, okay, where maybe do I want my salary to fit in when I'm looking for a good place to live. So if I look at this calculator again, it also brings up transportation. Now, transportation in the United States is essential. Everything is really, really far away in comparison to other places, and the public transportation system isn't always the greatest. So transportation can usually be pretty expensive. I don't know if it's this expensive, but I think what's pulling into account here is maybe a car payment, your gas, insurance. This is pulling in a lot of different components when looking at transportation.
Yes, and that varies, a lot, depending on what decisions that you're making and what, options you're choosing. And if you're ever, wanting more information, more educational tools, our relocation team is fully equipped to help you with that, and help you have the resources to research and find the best option for you and your family.
Yes, thank you. That's what this is all about. And we want to be able to educate you guys so you feel prepared for the wonderful journey of coming to the United States. So kind of going back to the chat, I see someone has said Charlotte, North Carolina, and I see another one for Winston-Salem. For those of you who have asked about Cape Fear is located in Fayetteville, which I have pulled up already. So this is what we look at for Fayetteville. One great thing about this tool is you can add a comparison. So I'm going to pull up a comparison right here. I'm going to bring up Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm also, I see Winston-Salem. Winston-Salem. Awesome. So just kind of pulling that up, it'll compare for you across the board. You can see they're pretty relatively close. North Carolina stays about in the same average across the board. You are going to notice that bigger cities like Charlotte are going to be on the higher end. And Winston-Salem, Fayetteville, they're kind of more of the middle tier. Very suburban. They're going to be just a little bit under that. I think it's good to note too, I'm going to go ahead and throw on here, I'm going to throw a city in California so we can kind of just get a price comparison of what it looks like in relative to North Carolina. So if I pull up San Francisco, right, you can see San Francisco is a huge city in California. The cost of living is going to be drastically higher. North Carolina is that middle tier. You can see one of the biggest costs of in California, for example, is housing. That's where it's going to eat up a lot. And also with your taxes, you can see those are some big costs of living in North Carolina, where you're going to have a lot lower numbers for North Carolina. So this is a great tool you can play around with, pull up different cities, pull up when you get your offer, go ahead and pull up your city and start kind of thinking about a budget and what you're going to be working with there. Molly, is there anything else that you would add to this calculator? Anything that you've seen really helpful?
I think that just one thing to note is that you can determine, you have the ability to make adjustments to your budget. You can spend less on food, you could spend more on food. You can make smart decisions to help lower your costs, or, if your costs are already low and your budget's well, you can budget more for those different activities. I think it's also important just to think about your family and what their needs are, and what different necessities you're going to have as a group. So there's a lot to consider when you're talking about budgets and when you're thinking about a budget. So I think this is a great place to come and get that estimated cost and just get you on the right track. But take it internal as well and think about what you and your family needs to make a great estimated guess of what your costs are going to need to be once you get here to the United States.
Thank you. No, I 100% agree with that. I love it. While you were talking, one thing that came to mind was on this calculator has something here. It's called other necessities. These are going to kind of include your utilities. So this is what you're going to be thinking of, the bills that are going to cost for your water, for your electricity, for your internet. These are other essential needs that you will need to have here in the United States. To pay for. So that's just another key component that you want to look at there. All right, so that is our EPI calculator. We love it. We say go use it. And we have thrown it into the chat for you so you can have that resource. And I'm excited to show you another tool that we use, and I'm going to turn the time over to Molly.
Thank you so much. Yes, we have this great tool. It's called Rome to Rio. I use this every single time I take a trip somewhere, just to get a lay of the land. What Rome to Rio does is it shows you every possible way to get from point A to point B, no matter where that may be. So anytime that I'm traveling, I'm always looking up the city or the rural area that I'm in, just to see what kind of options that I have in the area, whether that be taxis or Ubers, or if those may not be available, if a train or a bus, or even just what the cost of driving would be. For this sake, I saw Fayetteville in the chat a few times. So we're going to go ahead and just use Fayetteville as our starting point as we look at Rome to Rio. And we're going to use Charlotte, as I did see Charlotte in the chat as well. And we're just going to take a look just to see what are all the possible ways, what's the estimated cost of getting from point A, Fayetteville, to point B, Charlotte. This is also a great way to show you how the distance of things can be, and the need for a vehicle and being able to drive in the United States. I can't emphasize that enough. As we get here, so it shows us the map. We can see Fayetteville here into Charlotte. And there's lots of options here. So you can fly. They do have options to fly into Charlotte from Fayetteville. It's about 2 hours and 7 minutes to fly. It can be a little bit more expensive to fly. As you can see here, tickets can be anywhere
I'm going to pause you real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry. We are only seeing the hotel information on here. On ours, there's a corner that says to view the map.
Okay, let me stop sharing. Give me just a moment and I will reshare.
No worries. Thank you for sharing that. While you're working on that, I personally have used, oh, there it is. There's great. But I personally used Rome to Rio lots of times when traveling and for vacations. So I love this website. So sorry, Molly, you're up.
No, that's great. Yes, I love this tool. As you can see here, flying is going to be quite expensive. You can be anywhere from about $180 to $700. But they do have options for trains. This is going to take a lot of time. So about 6 hours to take a train from Fayetteville to Charlotte. They do have these options. Again, that gives you that estimated cost. They have bus options. So looking at it about 3 hours and 35 minutes. And then you also have driving, which is about 2 hours and 47 minutes, right? So driving is going to give you a lot less time taken out of your day to get to these locations. You do have other options. I highly, again, recommend just thinking about your driving options that you're going to have when you come into the United States, what that's going to look like for you. Maybe practice driving in your current country currently, just so you have some knowledge ahead of time. And I think that another really fun spot to compare this to, just with Fayetteville being pulled up, right? You have Fayetteville here. We're going into the big city, Charlotte. Going to have a bunch of fun there. But you also have Wilmington, which is on the coast, one of our wonderful beaches here in North Carolina. And I want to show you guys this just so you can kind of see how close it is to the coast. Fayetteville, by driving is only an hour and 48 minutes to get down to the beach and spend a day with family or take some time to yourself, go exploring. They do have a bus. Again, that's going to be, an extra 2 hours to take the bus. So just considering the distance of things in the United States, can be one of the shocks that a lot of our candidates go through, something that I see a lot with all the candidates that I have relocated. So just having a better understanding ahead of time and knowing ahead of time can really help prepare you for what you're going to see here. And Rome to Rio can do this for any states, any location. So you can do from any spots. If you're heading somewhere else in North Carolina and you want to go visit the mountains, you can definitely take a look at that for here, or any other locations if you even plan on taking a little trip. So that is great. Anything to add here for Rome to Rio, Ashley?
Yeah, you know what? The only thing that I have to add is if you go and you actually click on the options that are off to the side, they'll give you the specific buses that you want to take, and it will say, okay, you have to take this bus, but you may have to walk a little bit to the next bus station to take this other bus. It'll pull up the price points on average. Just know those fluctuate. It's going to vary for the time of day. It's going to vary. But it also has an app that you can have on your phone. I visited New York recently, and that's how I did it. As I had my Rome to Rio up, and I said, okay, I need to get to this place. And it was like, here are the options. Oh, that's the cheapest one. That's what I'm going to go do. It was super helpful to me. I think transportation is one of the most essential pieces when moving to the United States. You want to be able to get to work. You want to be able to get to school. You want to be for your kids. You want to be able to get to the grocery store. So when determining where to live, it's super important to figure out how you're going to be able to get around to all the things you need to. And so I totally love this website.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will stop sharing. I know we have another great tool to share with you all today.
Yeah, I would love to share. Sorry, we're having some issues here, but next thing that we're going to kind of go into, whoops, went ahead of one. Next thing that we're going to go into is a little bit about schools and childcare. Just like I just said, when planning to where to live, you want to look at a lot of different things, right? You want to look at what the cost of living in that particular suburb of that city is going to be. You want to look at the distance from work. You want to be able to look at the distance from schools. And you also want to be able to look at schools and plan those. In the United States, there's actually 3 different kinds of schooling systems. We like to talk about this because it tends to be a little bit different from other countries. But we have 3 kinds of schools, and that is a public school, a charter school, and a private school. A public school is free, absolutely free to everyone, and every state has their own regulations, and there's also federal regulations that go into those schools and funding that goes into those schools. And the next tier, we have charter schools, and charter schools are public schools, but they have their own board, and they typically do not cost money. They typically free as well. Some may cost a little bit. However, a lot of charter schools are lottery systems. They're much smaller schools. And I'll show you a little bit on this next tool what those look like. And then on the 3rd tier of this, you have your private schools, which those typically cost money, have a tuition, but they run and operate independently from the state and federal mandate. So just depending on what your needs are for your child, There's lots of different options. A lot of times, private schools, charter schools are specialized schools. So if your kid is really good at technology, maybe they want to go to a specialized charter school or private school that can really help them in that way. There's different things like that. But let me go ahead and show you this tool that we have. It's another great website. It is called greatschools.org. I got to make sure I said that right. I almost said .com. Remember, it's .org. So greatschools.org. And you just pull it up. It's a very, very simple website. You come over here and you put in the city that you want. Is there any city in particular that you guys would like to know the schools for? Go ahead and throw that into the chat. I'm going to go back through some of the other ones that we have talked about. But go ahead and you just put in the city that you're looking for. You can even put, if you're wanting to know about a particular school, you can actually put the name of that school and search it up. But I'm just going to go ahead and put Charlotte in. We're going to search for that. And it's going to bring up a map of the city and all the schools that are listed in there and their ratings. All right. If I come over here to the side, you'll be able to see the individual schools as I scroll, the individual schools that are in and around Charlotte and their rating. So if you see right here, like Northwest School of the Arts, it's got a 9 out of 10 rating. If I click on this school, it will actually bring up, it'll say like what their average test scores are. Oh, and you're going to get an ad in the middle of this too. Sorry. You're going to get the test scores. You're going to get, how do the students tend to progress? You can see that's a 10 out of 10. That's great. It's way above average. How much is their college readiness? I mean, there's so much information here on each of the schools. Individual people can give reviews. They can talk about scores. And there's parent tips on each of the schools. So even if you're not looking for a location or looking for a school, you can actually come here and read a little bit about the school that your kids are going to. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to this calculator. One of the other places that we had on here was, let's see, we have Winston-Salem. So I'm going to go ahead and type that one in. Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Go ahead and search that, and you see it's going to bring up several schools in and around the area. And remember how I talked about those 3 kinds of schools? If you look over here, down at the bottom, it will actually tell you what those schools are. So you can see Atkins Academic and Technology High it falls within the public district. This is a high school. If you come over here to the downtown school, this is a pre-K elementary and middle school. Great schools rating. Oh, sorry, read the wrong thing. Early college. So there's tons of different schools within the area. And it will tell you what kind of school down below. It'll tell you the address. So what you can easily do is just copy that address, put it into Google Maps, and compare it to where your facility is. And that might be a good way to figure out what kind of transportation you're going to need and where to live. Molly, is there anything that you'd like to add to this?
Just a few things that I think is important to note is a lot of schools, public, charter, and private, now they're all going to have different offerings. So you definitely want to ask, when you're inquiring about getting your child signed up there. But a lot of schools offer school pickup for children. And these will be at bus stops. At bus stop locations. And so it may be better to consider moving somewhere closer to the school where you're going to have bus stops and your child can be picked up and dropped off from school. Maybe it's better to be a little bit closer to that location than it is to be to your facility, or maybe vice versa. Maybe it's better to be closer to your facility and you'll be the one driving and taking your children to school. So those are just things to consider. Something that really goes into that is the zip code of areas. So knowing like on the of your address, that zip code that's tied to the end of your address is going to have a lot to do with those school districts, where they're willing to pick up from the bus stops, because there are locations for schools. You know, if you're out of location for a school, they may not take your application because you're not within the right area to be qualified for that school. So just important to consider when you're thinking about places to live, thinking about school options. You may want to talk with them and see some of their recommendations, kind of see what their offerings are. And another thing that I just wanted to mention while we were talking about the different types of schools, you have private, public, and charter, is that you also have different levels of schools, which I know is seen across the world. But just to mention here for the United States, you have pre-K, which is before kindergarten, usually around the ages of 4 or 5. And then you have kindergarten, which starts around age 5 or 6. That goes into usually elementary schools about grade 5. So that's kindergarten through 5th grade. Then you usually have a middle school, which is going to be grade 6 to grade 8, and then high school, which is usually grade 9 to grade 12. Now that changes too. I saw on some of those great schools that it had pre-K through middle school. Sometimes they're combined like that. Sometimes it's middle school and high school. Sometimes it's pre-K and elementary. So just other things to consider. I know me growing up, I went through all distinct ones. I had some friends who were in the same school from kindergarten to 12th grade. So just another thing just to consider while you're looking at locations and talking with schools, and just seeing what the best option may be for you and your family.
Thank you. That is just a huge point to bring up, and that can actually vary for state. I know in some states, elementary school is kindergarten through like 5th grade, whereas in some states it's just kindergarten through 4th, and then they have a middle school that's 5th through 9th. Anyways, it varies. And sometimes it's called middle school, sometimes it's called junior high. That middle kind of grouping can change a little bit. So that's a super important thing you want to research when moving. With North Carolina in particular, it actually goes into more of how the city looks at it. And especially with going into public or charter versus private schools, that they will all operate differently, like Molly said too. So that just takes a little research, and Great Schools is a good tool to be able to look at that. So thank you, Molly. Those are great information. We are going to do a Q&A session at the end of our presentation. So please, if you have questions, feel free to go and put those into the chat. We have a few more slides that we still want to share, but I just wanted to throw that out there for everybody. All right, kind of the next thing that we want to always touch on with North Carolina or any state in particular is the licensure requirements, because that can be very, very different. If you are tuning in today and you have not passed your NCLEX exam, I urge you, our wonderful nurses, I urge you to take the NCLEX exam and join us as a nurse. The opportunities here are incredible, incredible for nurses. North Carolina in particular, they have they do require a social security number as of right now for their permanent licensure, but you can get a temporary license before that social comes, and that's always a big factor when looking at licensure requirements. We like to bring up licensure requirements so that you can be prepared and look at that, but they are subject to change. I can tell you from personal experience that the Board of Nursing changes quite frequently their requirements, and because of that, Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions has given each and every candidate that comes with us gets a personalized licensure specialist who will be able to walk them through the needed requirements for their license to make sure that you have your license the right time in the right state to be able to begin working upon coming to the United States. So I've found some of these in the background for you. If you want to keep up to date yourself on those requirements, we have put the North Carolina Board of Nursing into the chat. And so feel free to look on that. They do update it, but sometimes they are a little bit behind when they put a policy into effect. So again, always be referring to your licensure specialist who can give you the most up-to-date information. I mean, we are calling the boards of nursing constantly to make sure that that information is all accurate and up to date anytime one of those policies are put in. Molly, is there anything you'd add about licensure, or anything important that you see that our nurses experience in their relocation?
And I just want to say, like Ashley said, is keep in contact with your licensure specialist. They're going to get you on the best track, the best timeline, which I think is really important to note here, is the timeline of doing certain tasks and requirements that they have of you. Follow their instructions. They have done this for a long time. They're very well knowledge. Like Ashley said, they're constantly keeping up with the Board of Nursing, and the timeline that you do things is going to be very important. That way we can get you started at a good time. We can get you on your way to get into work, and they're going to have all the best information. So please use them. They're there for you, and they're always there to assist and help you in any way.
Awesome. Thank you, Molly. And I second that. Another great tool that you have within the immigration process with Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions is we have an English professor that will help you with your language exams. During that time, you'll be able to work with her to know what is the best language exam that you need to take. As of right now, and the information that I have today is that with the English proficiency exam, it is not required for the license itself, but it is required for your visa screen with the exams that are listed here on the screen. But when you get to that point where you need to be taking that test, make sure you're working with our English professor who can help you to know the exact English exam you need to take to make sure that it meets your licensure and your visa screen requirements. So please reach out there. And just know that this is standard across the United States for your visa. Each state is going to have different requirements for your licensure, whether you're endorsing it, whether you're doing it by exam. So just make sure that you are talking to someone on your worldwide team. Make sure at all times you have the accurate information that you need. And listen to them. They are very, very up to date. So use them as a tool to make sure that you come without any stress. So awesome. Well, with that, I'd pull into the next slide and turn it back over to Molly.
Thank you. Absolutely. So with this slide, I think it's important for everyone to know that we also care about you and your family. We want everyone to come to the United States to be able to acclimate, to be able to settle into their location and be as successful as any of our applicants here. So with that is knowing that your dependents and your spouses and maybe even elder children that are coming over have opportunities as well. There are a lot of fantastic jobs here in the North Carolina state. There are job opportunities. Everywhere you go, you have all those big cities, like we said, even in the rural parts, we still have job opportunities. Some of the top industries here that I have even seen is finance and banking is very big here. I moved over people whose husbands or wives were in banking, and they were able to acclimate very well into this new location. As you see here, the highest demand jobs, registered nurses. So go talk with our live recruiters. But you also have childcare workers working in restaurants. So lots of opportunities here, and your relocation team is here to make sure that not only you are acclimating well, but also your dependents. So please reach out to them. Please talk with them. We have resources that go beyond, finding jobs for them to be comfortable in, but just making sure that everyone is acclimating well and you are getting into your new location with no issues. Anything to add here, Ashley?
The only thing that I have to add is many of our clients, where you'll be a registered nurse, they have lots of other jobs available within their organization, and there are many of them that love to hire spouses or family members into those positions. So when you are relocating over, it's always good to ask. That can be a great resource for you. Start there. There's lots of great websites out there, Indeed.com, LinkedIn. Those are great places that you can begin looking for positions for your spouse. I would say you want to wait for that piece until a little bit before your arrival, to when you do arrive, just because they're not going to list jobs out for 6 months or more than that. People like to hire fairly quickly here in the United States, so just keep that in mind. And the kind of the standard process, as you'll see, is like a video interview and then maybe an in-person video, not video, in-person interview. So it's kind of the process that you'll see a little bit. But again, like Molly said, feel free to reach out to your worldwide team, and we'll help you as best we can with those resources. And relocation coordinators, we also have a series of flyers, and we can personally help you individually on your locations, especially with your dependents.
Absolutely.
So, awesome. All right. Well, that concludes our presentation for today about North Carolina. We hope that gave you some really good tools, some websites to use, and some information that can help you with North Carolina. But know that those tools can be used in a variety of states and a variety of locations. So feel free to use those there too. Before we jump into the Q&A, please let us know what state you would like to know of next, or if there's another one that you're looking at, go ahead and throw that into the chat, and put your questions into the Q&A section. We're going to bring CJ on. There he is. Hello, CJ. The man behind the curtain, the man behind the scenes. He makes sure that all of these wonderful webinars run smoothly. The man of the hour. But we're going to have CJ pull some questions for us, and then we are going to, we'll see what we can do to help and answer anything there.
Okay, all right. Can you hear me, Ashley?
We can. You sound great.
All right, awesome. Yeah, North Carolina is a beautiful state. Well, actually, me and my wife are living in this state, and we really loved it. So you won't have any problems when it comes to your Asian grocery stores. And also, you'll have a lot of activities just like apple picking, strawberry picking, pumpkins, sunflower, peaches, and it's really safe in the area. That's one of the most problems before moving. Like we are really anxious before moving in the United States with the safety, but when we got here, no problems at all. Okay, so let's move with our Q&A. So I've seen a few questions. Let's start with a question from Joseph Campos. He said, how about childcare? Is it cheap to find a daycare for small kids if both adults are working?
That's a great question. And childcare is very important. Again, that's just part of making sure that your dependents are settled in and being taken care of just in the way that you are. And I'd say prices are going to vary, not even by location, but also by facility that you're looking, or not facility as in your assigned facility, but facility as in the childcare facility. You may have 4 different childcare facilities in the area, and they all may be within different price ranges. I think that if you have your assigned facility and you have your assigned state, it's a great time to go ahead and start looking into those options. With childcare also comes reading about reviews and safety measures and the quality of staff. So there's a lot to consider there. And once you have an assigned relocation coordinator, we also have resources to assist with childcare, making sure that you're finding a good option. There's options from daycare centers to after school programs if they're, a little bit older and in school times. There's also private childcare, someone coming to your home or dropping them off at somebody else's home. So there's lots of options in the United States for childcare. And considering those options is going to be, researching those options, considering what's going to be best for you and family is going to really determine the price costs, because, different facilities are going to offer different options and different opportunities for the children. So I think it's just important to start your research as soon as possible. And then once you get to your relocation coordinator and you're finally in the stages of moving, just to revisit those, talk with your coordinator and take a look at those together so you guys can make a great plan for your children and make sure everyone's well taken care of while you're at work.
Absolutely. And just to add on to that, so with my little ones, I'm in the same boat. Me and my husband, we both work, and I have kids in elementary school, and I have a little toddler as well. And those prices vary, just like Molly said, across the board. I will say daycare does tend to be a little bit more expensive in the United States. So just kind of keep that in mind. The best place for me that I found to find daycare is actually going onto the city. Usually has a website. So I just recently moved to Virginia, in Stanton, Virginia, and I go to Stanton, Virginia's website. And usually there's a link on that website that you can say childcare, and it will show you really good childcare that's in the area. But another place that I've actually found daycare is Facebook. Funny enough, is you go on Facebook and you go to the city. Or like if I was going to Charlotte, North Carolina, or maybe a specific town within Charlotte, like Pineville, and I'd say Pineville Daycare. And usually there's Pineville daycare groups, or there's like Pineville moms or Pineville dads. And if you go into those groups and you say, what are the best daycares in the area? Usually people are really responsive, and they'll say, oh, this is a great daycare. This is where my kid goes. This is the price on those. Kind of getting involved with the community will really help you to find the best daycares all around. Your relocation coordinator can also help you, give you some websites to look up those as well.
Awesome. Okay, next question is, he said, I don't drive, and do you believe I can manage working in North Carolina without owning a car or without driving?
I'll take that one. I honestly, just to be full transparency, I don't think anywhere in the United States you will want to go without a car. It's kind of an essential part of being in the United States. Americans like to drive to be able to get to the grocery store, to be able to get to where you need to go. I would say that should be a really good goal, is to be working towards a car. One thing about the United States that I wish we were much better on is the public transportation system. It just isn't as developed as it is in other countries. And we do have it. And that's where Rome to Ria can help you out to see if you, but it's going to take you a lot longer to get to where you need to go. And in the end, you probably save money a little bit in time by getting a car. And I always advise learning to drive before coming to the United States for everyone. I would say the only places where you may not need a car is really massive city, like New York City. But your cost of living is going to equal out when it comes to the price. When you are in those bigger cities, you're going to be paying more for housing. Whereas if you come to, for example, Charlotte, where you may have to drive to work, your cost of living is going to be significantly lower, but you may have to drive a few extra minutes to get where you're going. Molly, is there anything you'd add to that?
We actually just had a chat come in at the bottom that says, is it easy to get a driver's license, and can I use my UK driver's license? Which I thought was just a great time to address that one as well. A lot of states here in the United States do accept international driver's license. we have resources to be able to look up that information. I would say from the UK, it's probably you probably can use that for a certain amount of time. It depends on the state. Every state has their own requirements, so you have to take a look into those. We do have resources to look into those requirements. And is it easy to get a driver's license? And I would say that this depends upon you as a person. Everyone individually is going to have different struggles, and and taking the tests. Now, I would say the test is relatively. It's not made to be difficult. It's just made to make sure that you know that you're going to be safe on the road. Is really what it comes down to, right? So maybe not difficult in terms of answering questions, but maybe difficult in knowing the right techniques and understanding the layout of the land. And we have resources to help with that as well. We have practice websites with practice tests. We even know a site that will do an AI generated simulation on the computer for you, so you can kind of see it in real time virtually. So we have a lot of resources to assist you with that. Ashley had just dropped that link in the chat, drivingtest.org. I highly recommend looking at it. They have a bunch of great content, and they even have free options to take just free practice tests, just to kind of get a gauge on where you are and help you understand the things that you need to look at. And those tests will be specific to state. So if you're coming to North Carolina, you can go to that website, look up North Carolina, and they will show you the practice exams for that state. Another great resource for driving tests will be your local DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles. You can get handbooks there. They will have guides for you, testing materials. That way you can prepare as best as possible. And oftentimes you can even find those on the local website. So if you were coming to Charlotte, you can look up Charlotte's DMV website and take a look at any of the resources they have there for you to help prepare ahead of time. Anything to add there?
I'm going to throw that into the chat. I got the DMV pulled up for you.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
So, every state is going to be really different when coming to driving when it comes to rules. The best way to think about it in a little bit is every state kind of operates a little bit like its own country, all within the United States of America. And that's just kind of a good way to put it. Majority of laws are going to be similar, but there are little nuisances or little differences. But there are a variety of tools, like Molly said, to be able to help you. If you learn the basics of driving before you come, it would just be learning, okay, when the light is red, can you turn right? Those, just little things like that that can vary per state. But almost every driver's license will require some kind of eye exam and some kind of exam to be able to identify street signs. Those are pretty standard across the board. And the DMV is not always the favorite place to go for Americans. And it can be called different things in different states. Could be MV, those kind of things. But you just want to look for the drivers and motorist regulations of that state. But again, your worldwide team can help you with the specifics of that. For North Carolina, it is called the DMV, and it's a pretty standard process. If you look on the website and say, okay, I'm coming from this country, what are the things that I need? You look at that list, you take those documents, you go and wait for a little bit, or you set up an appointment. I always advise setting up an appointment.
Yes.
It will save you hours of time. But set up an appointment, go, you'll just wait, and then you'll have a personalized booth where they'll talk to you. But if you come prepared with it, it's much easier than showing up to ask questions. But the website will give you all that you need.
Oh yeah, I agree. And just like last year, I had my driver's license here in the United States, and it's kind of different when I compare it from the Philippines. So here we have the road signs, we have the written test, and the actual, where you will sit with the inspector, and he will watch you drive around the city. But I'll say it's easy. So I'm not really familiar with the signs in the United States. I only took like a week, like reviewing all the stuff. You can see all the review materials in the internet. So don't worry about getting your driver's license in the US. you have the internet to check all the notes and sample exams. Okay, so next question is about safety. Could you provide information about the safety conditions in NC or North Carolina?
Absolutely. I think it's good to note that any state that you go to in the North Carolina, there are going to be safe areas, and there's going to be areas that are going to be a little bit more dangerous. We actually just did a webinar on safety in the United States. So I encourage everyone to go and watch that. It will be on our YouTube playlist shortly. That'll talk a lot about the safety, finding the safety in the United States. North Carolina I grew up in, and I grew up in an extremely safe area. I never felt unsafe. Growing up, I was in a very urban area, and so I personally think North Carolina is very safe place to go, but there are good and bad people everywhere. And so it's always important to take safety precautions no matter what you're doing, and make sure that you are being smart and wise with the choices that you're making. Don't share information that or sensitive information with people you don't know, or anyone really. You want to keep that with you. You want to make sure that by doing the little things of researching good schools or researching good neighborhoods, you can do that with a variety of websites that our team can help you with. And there are many safe places to live within North Carolina.
Absolutely.
Okay, and we're done with our last question. And the question is, let me check. Okay, this is the question. How much money should we bring when moving to North Carolina, or estimated money or cash to live like a month before working in North Carolina?
That's a great question. And I think that this question is going to vary a lot, again, between what your personal needs are, what your personal budget is, if you're coming over with a family, if you're coming over alone, and taking those considerations. We, on average, recommend coming over with about $5,000, $5,000 to $7,000, is going to get you in a sweet spot, and an additional $1,000 to $2,000 per dependent that you're coming over with, and that's just a range. We can't make a determination for what you and your personal needs are and what your family's needs are going to be once you are here. So it's best to, again, take a look at that EPI calculator, plan and budget what that's going to look like. What are your dependents going to need? And what are you going to need, and what is happening in the area that you're in, to make sure that you're settling down. You are going to have expenses when you get here, especially while you wait to begin working, just as simple as, making sure that you're fed every day, making sure that you have a roof over your head. But you also have different expenses, right? You might want to be securing permanent housing and putting down a deposit for a house, or first month's rent for a house. You might want to start already looking into getting a car loan and putting down a down payment on a vehicle. So it's going to vary greatly of what your plans, what your needs, and what your family's needs are when you're coming over. I think the best tool that you can use to plan ahead of time for that is that EPI calculator. And any money that you save and you bring over ahead of time is going to greatly benefit you. The more that you can save, the better, and the easier your transition and your settling is going to be.
Just to add on to that, basic things to think about. You need to think about food. So if you take that EPI calculator, think about how much am I going to spend on food when I first get there? Because I think for me, when I move somewhere new, I don't think about all the basics I need. Okay, I need salt, I need seasonings, I need, and a lot of times we don't think about those because those are already in our pantry right now. So, you're going to be starting fresh. So you're going to have to build up a bulk of your food. You also want to think about transportation. Again, when you first get here, you're probably going to be needing to use an Uber or to get around. And so that can be a little bit expensive. Taxis, those kind of services. can be a little bit expensive while you're working to get your driver's license and get set up that way. So I always say that it's better to be over prepared. Save as much as you can, and start now. Save, if you can only save $50, save $50, put it aside. Say, this is my fund for my move, for my relocation. Just take a little bit, put it aside, put it in an account, or put it in a wallet and say, nobody's going to touch this. This is going to be secured. But just if you start now, you're going to be way better prepared. Every cent will count. And remember, when you first arrive, one thing that we always laugh about, when I moved to another country, the first thing I did was I want to buy souvenirs, I want to buy shirts, I want, I'm here, I want the big fun things. Wait on those. Get your essentials settled, and then bring the fun and the joy and the celebration. But make sure that your needs are met first when you arrive. And that's the best advice I have for that.
All right, so that's it for our Q&A session. And so I just want you to know that you can like us on Facebook for future announcements. If you really love watching our webinars, we are posting those. So any updates from Worldwide HealthStaff, you can find it all in our Facebook. I'll put that on the chat. So like us on Facebook today. And next, we have this referral nurse friend program. So share the good news if you have a nurse friend who have passed the NCLEX and have a current minimum 1 year of bedside experience. Just send them their resume, and if they are, if they will be a good candidate, you will earn like up to $250. And yeah, so that's it for a Q&A session. And I'm passing the mic to Ashley and Molly for any final messages.
Thank you, CJ. We appreciate that. Jump on, join us. We're here to help. Please reach out to us and your worldwide representatives at any time. So know that we are here, and we want to make sure that your transition to the United States is as easy as possible. We care about you, and we want to make sure that you feel supported and you have all the information that's going to help you with that regard. So it's been a really pleasure for me to come and talk to you today, especially about North Carolina being a place that's very near and dear to my heart. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Okay. Bye.